So today's class we're going to be focusing on shoulder internal rotation. Shoulder internal rotation is a fundamental movement when it comes to joint health for the shoulder. So when we lack the internal rotation of the shoulder, it very much tends to limit all of our movements, whether it means lifting the arm into the overhead position, extending back, abducting out to the side, rotating in any positions. So the intent of today's class is really to help create more space within the joint so that the actual joint can move a little bit more freely in all these different ranges that the shoulder has access to. In terms of what you need for today's class, optional is to have 2 tennis balls, just for building better tension with some of the exercises that we'll be doing. And I'm going to be running the class seated, which is the option I will advise as well, but you can also do this standing. If you do choose to do the class standing though, just focus and be a bit mindful of what's happening with your lower body and your spine in terms of compensating with the exercises that we do. So we'll begin. If you have tennis balls, you can use them now. I'm going to ask for you to take your arms and have them by their sides, make a fist or clench your tennis balls. And from here, take a deep breath in and pack that ear down, make a good abdominal brace, and then spread a little bit of tension into the rest of the body. So shoulders, arms, chest and back, legs are slightly tight as well. And from here, we begin by flexing the neck, so I tuck my chin towards my chest. From there, I rotate to one side. From there, I laterally flex, so I side bend, dropping the ear behind my shoulder, and then I extend back, which permits me to then rotate across, back into that side bend position, going into my flexing position, and back to the start, and then rewind. So now rotate the other way, side bend, extend, and rotate across. And just go back and forth with the movement. Try to keep it slow and controlled. Try to expand each aspect of the movement as you go through. Try and increase more of the side bend, increase more of the flexion. Rotate across more. I'm also thinking to try and get the movement coming just from the neck, so I can imagine everything from the neck below is solidified, not allowing any movement to happen from the neck below. And finish up on that one. Good. Now for the next exercise, I'm going to ask you to place the hands behind your back, somewhere around the lower back region, in the lumbar region, and then you're going to think about keeping the fist in this position. From here we're going to do our scapular cast. So following with me, so from here we're going to have a good brace again, and begin by elevating the shoulder blades. I lift them up, then I slide them back into retraction, then I slide the shoulder blades down into depression. And then I slide the shoulder blades forwards into protraction, and I keep that journey going in the same direction, trying to carve out a smooth circular motion. So when I go from elevation to putting the shoulder blades back, I try to keep elevation. And when I'm going from retraction to putting the shoulder blades down, I try to keep retraction. And as I bring the shoulder blades forwards into protraction, I'm trying to hold on to depression. And from protraction into elevation, trying to maintain protraction. So rather than carve out a sort of diamond shape, I'm really trying to hit all the corners to get the smoothest, largest circle possible. And change direction. Meanwhile, still focusing on keeping a little bit of tension, focusing on trying to expand the circle, keeping it smooth and controlled, also tuning in focusing on how these sensations feel as I go through this movement, and finish up on that rep here. Now for the glenohumeral, we're going to go with the arms by the side. Alright, I'm going to take one arm and take it across from here. I'm externally rotating the shoulder. I'm going to then lift the arm up into my overhead position. From here, I internally rotate the shoulder as best as I can, and then I continue to send the arm back behind me, continuing to internally rotate the shoulder, continuing to internally rotate the shoulder as I finish with the arm by my side, and then I extend back, trying to hold on to that internal rotation. And then when I hit a blocking point, where I feel I can't extend more, I slowly unwind, rotate the other way, to then move the arm back out and around into my overhead position, where I externally rotate the shoulder and adduct the arm across. Checking in, making sure you're still keeping tension of the rest of the body. I want you to keep that movement going. And now I want to focus on how that sensation feels as you go through the movement. How does it feel as you contract into flexion? How does it feel as you internally rotate in the top position? How does it feel as you send that arm back, continuing to internally rotate? And then when we reverse it, we extend back. How does that contraction feel to extend the stuff that allow you to extend the arm behind you? Good. You can also think at what angles or areas do you feel maybe a little weaker, a little bit more restricted with the movement. Maybe you find these areas you lose a bit of that mind-muscle connection. That mind-muscle connection might mean or feel like a drop in control, a drop in strength, a drop in sensation. Just take note of any of these little details and switch sides. So abduct across, externally rotate the shoulder, keeping tension, and I bring the arm up into my overhead position. I'm going to pause, internally rotate the shoulder as best as I can. Send the arm back, continuing to internally rotate. And then I rewind the movement. Stand back. You hit that blocking point, unwind. And each rep, work on expanding the movement. Try to increase the adduction across. Try to hold on to that external rotation as the arm comes into your overhead position. Try to increase internal rotation as you send the arm back. Try to make all of these happen without the compensation or without the coupling of other joints. Try your best to get this movement coming just from shoulder joints. And if there are any other areas as you go through the movement you do notice yourself compensating, just make a mental note as I bring the arm overhead. Do I find I maybe push my head forwards, excessively elevate the shoulder blade as I internally rotate the shoulder, extend the arm back? Do I find myself rotating with the spine to get more range? Just make a little note if you find yourself trying to do any of these compensations throughout the movement. Good. I'll finish up there. Now our next exercise is going to be a bilateral shoulder internal rotation stretch where we're going to be performing a couple of rounds of curls and rails. For the setup, I'm going to place my fists behind my back. Now with this, I can play a little bit with how high I bring the fist. That will generally make the position a little bit more challenging. So if you found that already quite uncomfortable to hold, then just bringing the fist slightly further down will reduce the amount of internal rotation that we put onto the shoulder. So you might find that a little bit more comfortable. We are looking for a sort of stretch deep within the shoulder joint. It is a capsule stretch. Having said that, you might find some restriction, tension in the front, maybe also a little bit in the back. That is also fine. What I'm asking for is that you find the balance between comfort but also a good line of tension or stretch for you. So you have your hands behind your back, then the next step to try and play a little bit with finding a a good stretch is to play with, in this position, I can play with contracting my shoulders. So as I bring the shoulder blades forwards, I'm also thinking moving the elbows in relation. So as I move the shoulder blades forwards, elbows can move forwards and in slightly. And what that does is then force my shoulder into a slightly bit more of an internally rotating position. Okay, play a little bit with shoulder blade orientation. Move the shoulder blades around a little bit and try to find that balance of a good stretch, but also a position which you feel comfortable as well. And I'm going to ask you now just to hold this position, and while you're holding it, just bring your focus to the breath. Try to find a smooth, rhythmic breathing pattern that is calming to you while you're holding this passive position for me. And while you're holding it, I'll explain to you the pals and the rails. So the pals in this position is going to be to resist our back. We want to think externally rotate into the shoulder, into the back. So the movement I'm trying to create is this movement, coming from the shoulder joint. So as I'll have my hands behind the back and I build up the pals contraction, what I'm trying to do is rotate externally, not push with the intent to flex into my back, but simply just create that movement. So wherever your elbows are, think when you create the pals, they will not move. You do not want to create the pals contraction and then move the elbows, because that would mean you're compensating and getting the movement coming from somewhere else. Okay? Rails will be the opposite, so we're going to try and internally rotate more. So you're going to try to do this movement. You can almost imagine there's a scale behind your hand and your back in contact, and you want that scale to read as light as possible as you try to internally rotate. Again, try to think those elbows stay fixed where they are, and that rotation comes from the glenohumeral joints. So follow along with me. What I want you to begin with is just by taking a good deep breath in. From there, take a good brace and spread tension into the rest of the body. So think arms tight, tension in the shoulders, chest back, abs are braced, lower body's braced. And from here, just for the mild 10%, just resist or externally rotate into your back to feel that area that's on stretch, the way the tension is within the shoulder being used, contracted. This is what we want to focus on using as we build up the pals now. So now build that isometric effort to 20%. Now we're on to 40, 60, and now this is where I'll just say, if this is your first time doing this class, stop at 60 for me. Okay? If you have experience with internal rotation, then you can feel free to build up. So from 60, slowly we'll ramp up to 80% of our max effort. Don't just jump, but slowly build up that effort. And from 80, safest, greatest effort, and a hold. So right now I'm trying to just keep that same effort of externally rotating into my back. Trying not to let that effort drop whatsoever. 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly soften. And rails contraction, so try to internally rotate more. Remember, elbows stay in the same position. I'm fighting my best. If you're at your end range, you'll probably find the arms do not leave the back, which is completely fine. Just try your best to get as light as possible. Try your best to rotate, whatever it means for you to create an internal rotation of the shoulder. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now soften. Try not to come out of the stretch for me, but if you feel that you just sunk deeper eventually into a stretch, stay there for me. If you feel you've lost the stretch a little bit, try to adjust a little bit with shoulder blade positioning, trying to internally rotate the shoulders a bit more in that position to find a slightly deeper stretch. And then from there, guys, just try to relax in this position. Bring your attention back to the breath, back to a calm, soothing breathing pattern for yourself that allows you to try and relax while we hold this passive stretch for a little bit now. Now what I will say is in the second round, as we come a little bit further into our end range, you will notice we'll feel a little bit weaker. So do respect that as we're building up the pales contraction. You might feel you get to 40% and that is your limit for strength output and you'd have no more. Respect that and then stop there. Try not to put more into it if that's all you have. Always try to think about just working with what feels safe to you and what is within your capacity. So we'll do our second round now. Breath in. Make sure you have a good brace in the full body. And pales contractions. I'm resisting my back 20%. Slowly ramping up to 40. Slowly building up to 60. It's your first time doing this class. I want you to stop at 60. If you have experience, slowly build up now to 80. Now build up to your safest and greatest effort and hold. Stay with me. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Slowly soften. Try to just ease back into the passive stretch once more. Try to find it. And then from here, I just want you to take a few deep breaths in and out. Just try to ease off all the tension before you slowly then come out of position. Good. Now while you're resting, I'm going to explain the next exercise. It's a lift off in the same position. So now what I'm going to ask from you is a combination of internally rotating the shoulder combined now with flexion. Combined now with extension. So my arm's going to be back in that same position. From here, the lift off is going to be like a rails contraction. So I'm going to try to internally rotate the shoulders and combine that with extending the shoulder, which will be pulling the elbows back. Now when you do this movement, try to avoid compensating. Some of the common things I'll see, especially as people start to fatigue, will be an excessive forward tilting of the head, leaning forward, surrounding the back, shrugging the shoulder blades even up towards the ears. So try your best to stay tall and not compensate by moving the neck, the spine, or anything else. So the lift off will be from that position to internally rotate and extend. Now if you feel you're far from being able to achieve that, then lowering the fist slightly further down may make this exercise a slight bit more achievable. If you feel you're near enough to just lifting off your back, but you don't, that's also fine. That's a win in my books. I'd rather that than you trying to compensate and change the movement and use other parts of your body to create the movements. What we're going to do is a set of 5 reps, and each hold is going to be for 5 seconds. So from here, I lift off, hold that isometric contraction for 5 seconds, reset, and then repeat for 5 reps. So you can use a tennis balls for this if you wish. Again, you can play with the adjustment of how high your hands are behind your back. And then from here, we're going to take a good deep breath in. Have a good brace, make sure you have tension in the full body again, and begin the lift off. So combining internal rotation and extension for 3, 2, 1, resets. Good. Lift off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, resets. Lift off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, resets. Lift off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, resets. And final rep, lift off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, and resets. Good. Now our second set is going to be the same exercise, but we're going to add a little bit more into the movements. So from this position, I lift off, I extend the elbows, and then I externally rotate the shoulders, internally rotate, flex and reset. Okay, so from a front view, I lift off, extend the elbows, holding that position, keeping the shoulder blades retracted, shoulders extended. I externally rotate, then I internally rotate, flex the elbows, and then reset back on. For this, 5 reps, and same, try to control each rep. You're trying to keep shoulder extension throughout the movements. Alright, so make that your focus point, and at the same time, also just try to avoid compensating anywhere else through the exercise. Hands behind your back. Make sure, body check, have a good amount of tension in the rest of the body. Squeezing the tennis balls, and lift off, extend the elbows, externally rotate, internally rotate, flex the elbows, and slowly set on. Lift off, extend the elbows, externally rotate, internally rotate, flex the elbows, and set back on. Good. Lift off, extend the elbows, externally rotate the shoulders, internally rotate the shoulders, flex the elbows, and set back on. 2 more. Lift off, extend the elbows, externally rotate the shoulder, internally rotate the shoulder, flex, and set back on. And then final rep, lift off, extend the elbows, externally rotate the shoulder, internally rotate the shoulder, flex the elbows, and then set back on. And have a little rest there. Our final exercise is going to be called a half swimmers. So we're adding just a little bit more onto what we've just been doing with these exercises. And the starting position is going to be in a T. So from here, I externally rotate the shoulders, then I'll internally rotate the shoulders as best as I can. Pull the arms down and back. So I'm pulling the arms down and back into shoulder retraction, extending the shoulders, pausing about here, and then bending the elbows to bring the hands up behind the back as best as I can. Okay, you're not going to set on though, you're going to try and hold that retracted position and then just reverse the movements. Coming back up as I externally rotate, back into the top position, repeat, externally rotate, internally rotate, pull the arms back and down, flex the elbows to bring the hands as high up behind the back as possible, and then return back to the starting position. So for this one, we're going to be performing 5 reps. I want your focus to be on constantly trying to pull these arms back, as well as squeezing out as much internal rotation as you're pulling the arms back and down. Okay? You'll notice as you fatigue, these arms are going to want to slowly drift forward, so I want you to try and keep that slightly shoulder extended, shoulder retraction position. So it's going to be 1 set, 5 reps. Set yourself up, arms out in the T position, good brace, good tension in the full body, and begin to externally rotate the shoulders. 5 for more at the end, and then internally rotate, 5 for more for a second or 2, and then continuing to pull the arms back and down, continuing to internally rotate, bending the elbows down to bring the hands up behind the back. Do not set on, but when you get to the end, reverse. So straighten the elbows, slowly bring the arms back up to the start, and repeat. Good. Try to keep as much tension as you can in the rest of the body. Try not to let the movement come from anywhere else. Try to make sure, just pay attention to what's happening with your head, your spine, make sure you're not pushing the head forwards or back, you're not rounding the back in any way. And fight for more. On each rep, you want to fight for a little bit more of everything, a little bit more rotation each way, a little bit more of extending the shoulder as you pull the arm back. Good, fight. going to do is just retest glenohumeral calves from what we did in the beginning session to now assessing and seeing how it feels at the end of the session. So as we go through this, I want you to revisit those sensations you felt as you went through the glenohumeral calves and just see now how it feels from before and afterwards. See if you've noticed any particular differences as you go through a movement. Checking, do you notice any improvement with that mind-muscle connection? Do you notice improvement with the control, the strength? Maybe you might have more sensations of the movement as well. So this is going to be 2 to 3 reps. Choose your own tension. It's more just a sort of reassess, see how things are. So I'm not asking for a great deal of tension, but if you feel that helps you to feel the movement better, then by all means do so. I would definitely say try to keep the movement slow as best as possible. The slower you can control the movement, the more feedback you can start to register and get from the movement. If we move through the movement really fast, it gets a little bit harder to try and register all the sensations that's going on in our body. So, 2 to 3 reps. Starting with the arm externally rotated, abducted to the side. From here, lifting the arm up into flexion, into the overhead position, internally rotating the shoulder. Send the arm back, continuing to internally rotate. As I said before, today what we've trained generally will help open up the shoulder joint to give it more freedom in all its planes of movement. So while you're going through this movement, every aspect of this movement we're going through, you may have got a little bit of an improvement out of. So see for yourself where those improvements are. And finish up on that rep and switch sides. If you remember how it felt at the beginning, as you were contracting to bring the arm into the overhead, as you were contracting to internally rotate the shoulder, as you were sending the arm back, and as you were reversing to extend, all those sensations, if you remember how they felt at the beginning, how do they feel now? How does the left side feel in comparison to the right side? Again, if you notice yourself compensating at the beginning, those compensations that you're doing at the beginning, do you find yourself compensating in the same way, or a little less, or even maybe differently? And I want you to finish up on that rep, and we will finish up there, guys. Thank you very much.